A broken soul doesn't invest in boundaries because the world has crossed them without mercy. Shannon L. Alder. Personal boundaries are basically your personal space, an individual's sphere of interest, principles, and beliefs. We need personal boundaries so that we can clearly feel and differentiate our own emotions, actions, beliefs, and thoughts from others, and also to understand if these emotions and thoughts are yours, then you are responsible for them and control them. Boundaries also protect your inner world from outside encouragements. This invisible feature separates yourself from other people. But personal boundaries are not static, they change depending on the degree of closeness with the specific people. After all, you devote much more to your loved ones than acquaintances, friends, or strangers from the street. When setting boundaries, you first of all decide for yourself what behavior towards yourself will be reasonable and safe and will not destroy you as an individual. Personal boundaries are not created to force someone to do something. You establish them for yourself, and this way you show that you are responsible for your own actions, destiny, and let others know what is permissible and what is unacceptable to do in relations to yourself. But for this, you really need to know exactly who you are and your true self. You need to know where your boundaries end and where boundaries of others begin, and be responsible for yourself and yourself only. A healthy individual begins with healthy boundaries. It is almost impossible to manipulate a person who is clearly aware of his personal boundaries and clearly defines them for others. Remember, the word no is the most basic boundary and is complete and detailed sentence, and also a necessary ingredient in a healthy lifestyle. Personal boundaries have their own signs of soundness. Acknowledge the individual manifestations of other people and allow them to be different from you. Clearly identify degree of closeness with different people. Know how to recognize and abstract from unpleasant or dangerous situations so you don't let them violate your personal boundaries. Let others know how you want to be treated. Say no to those things you don't want to do or things that are unpleasant to you. Share personal information based on how well you know and trust the person. It is also an ability to recognize and differentiate your problems and responsibilities from others. Clearly communicate your feelings and needs. Be aware and allow yourself some personal space and privacy. Speak up right away when someone crosses your boundaries. The biggest sign that your boundaries are okay is when you feel comfortable. If you constantly feel that your life doesn't belong to you and that your personal space is constantly invaded, it's time to protect yourself and establish healthy boundaries between you and others. If people around you by their words or actions cause you physical or emotional discomfort, this is a violation of personal boundaries. You should remember that your own healthy boundaries are not set for you by somebody else. They do not make you uncomfortable, they're not strict or harsh, and they do not interfere with your personality. You have to keep in mind that abusers constantly violate boundaries, since family tyrants generally do not recognize the freedom and interests of their partner. Even in ordinary and perfectly normal married couples, situations of personal boundaries violations can occur regularly. For example, when a husband or wife makes fun of their partner's interests, hobbies, or appearance. There are situations when one of the partners tries to completely control the financial spending of the other, or even when you are very tired and you want to sleep and your partner demands that you watch a movie with him. This can also be an attribute to a situation of personal boundary violation. Another example would be you are talking to your friend at midnight because it's more convenient for her, or when your friend comes over and habitually lights up a cigarette in your home. There may be thousands of such examples, but there is a nuance. What gives discomfort to some people may not bother others at all. Therefore, the issue of personal boundaries and violations is very individual. Boundaries can change depending on context and environment, become solid for some people and completely blurry for others. Personal boundaries can be open for import, when we gladly accept someone else's help, resources, time, money, etc., or for export of our own resources. We usually import what we need the most, and we export either what we have in abundance or what we hope to get a good price for. You can defend your boundaries in different ways depending on the situation. The ability to say no, for example, is an important personality skill. It is necessary for those who easily succumb to pressure and aggression. Our ability to form and protect our own boundaries is formed in our childhood by our parents. David Earle said, The more severe the dysfunction you experience growing up, the more difficult boundaries are for you. But over the course of life and with different people, sense of boundaries can change many times. Teenagers, for example, guard their boundaries belligerently. They need this life period in order to separate from their parents and learn to build their own life. Or couples, another example, in the early stages of falling in love sometimes completely dissolve each other's boundaries and fall into enmeshment, which leads to feeling suffocated and cramped. If you do not set proper boundaries from very beginning and do not outline the circle of your interests, then you most likely will come to crisis and break up. Some people refuse to set clear boundaries due to some insecurities or because they're afraid to offend someone or to be rejected. Others install such a strict boundaries that they end up invading the foreign territory. But you should always remember that there is part of yourself that needs to be protected from any encroachments, something that belongs only to you, your emotional health, what you believe in, and what you won't let anyone touch. Someone said, selfishness is not when you do what you want. Selfishness is when you are sure that others should do what you want. When you desire to do an act of kindness, help, or provide someone with advice, you should first make sure that by doing so, you are not breaking someone's boundaries and that you are not enforcing your act of kindness upon someone who perhaps may not need it in the first place. There are 6 main types of boundaries: physical, sexual, materialistic, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. The physical boundary begins and ends with your own skin. Your physical body is your physical and personal space. You protect your physical space by determining who can touch you and how they can touch you, and by having a physical space where you can feel safe and comfortable. When it comes to sexual boundaries, you determine what sexual touches feel good to you and what doesn't feel good to you. Only you can decide what is allowed and what is not, when and with whom. You maintain this boundary and you speak up when someone crosses them. Materialistic boundaries are when you decide what actions are allowed and what's not allowed towards your property. And there are emotional boundaries, where you are responsible for your feelings and others are responsible for theirs. By setting strong emotional boundaries, you will not allow someone make you their punching bag, make comments about your weight, appearance, age, and you don't do this to others as well. Healthy emotional boundaries keep you from blaming or taking personal accusations or feel guilty for someone else's solutions or problems and give unsolicited advice. Emotional boundaries is awareness of your inner emotions without judging yourself. It is an ability to respond to those feelings of yours immediately and calmly accept them. Making accusations and arguing or defending yourself is an indication of weak emotional boundaries. If you ignore your feelings when they just start to appear, if you think you shouldn't feel those feelings at all, your body will turn up the volume until you hear them. Spiritual boundaries is basically an understanding of what is important to you, your values, your faith. Just like all the other boundaries, it is important to be aware of them and protect them. Intellectual boundaries are also your values, views, thoughts, and opinions. Are only yours, and only you decide what you want to share with others and what to keep for yourself. Whatever you're willing to put up with is exactly what you will have. And as always, thank you for watching.